Good afternoon, everyone. This is our first Graduate Student Association panel discussions, where we are opening a virtual space for graduate students at Seton Hall University. I want to welcome you all for participating. Um, I also want to share our PowerPoint for this presentation. This is our panel discussions, research connections, stories, and personal motivations for graduate students. I'll be your co-host. I am Angie Estrada, and my colleague Angelina Gonzalo will be also hosting and guiding this conversation. Um, our mentors are Reverend Dr. Forrest Pritchett and Dean Colinda Laval. Our panelists will be Caroline Godley and Robert Tanzer, who are currently graduate students at Seton Hall University. And our Graduate Student Association members are, of course, still growing, but Angelina Gonzalo is part of our Graduate Student Association, Demi Vernikov, Elda Hernandez, Caroline Garley, Robert Tanzer, Sijat Nufaye, and myself, Angie Estrada. The introductions very briefly. I also want to welcome everyone. And if for some reason you want to participate, give us your opinion, your perspective, share a story, feel free to participate and share your ideas at any time during our presentation. As I say, I'm Angie Estrada, currently a graduate student finishing my second master's degree in higher education and student affairs administration from the College of Education, the Department of Management, Leadership, and Policy at Seton Hall. I am very happy to complete my program this year, and also very happy to contribute to our new Graduate Student Association. This is the first time in 25 years during the Peter Chime Academic Exposition that we are offering this space for graduate students, an event that is going to be talking about research, but also those inspiration, those opportunities, motivations, ideas, journeys, experiences that we all have throughout our career or different interests in life. So we definitely want to open the space not only for the academics, but also for the social life and the opportunities that we have to connect with each other. Angelina Gonzalo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Angelina Gonzalo. I'm in my first year of the MPA program, the Master's in Public Administration. I decided to pursue an MPA because of my passion for public service, and I was very excited to get involved in the Graduate Student Association because, from my perspective and from my peers, there is a need for graduate student support. And we're just looking forward towards growing as a graduate student association.
Thank you, Angelina. Appreciate it. As I say, we have our graduate student association members here present. Angelina, Temi, Elda, Caroline, Robert, Sijat, and myself. And also our Dean, Colin de Laval, and our mentor, Reverend Dr. Forrest Pritchett. Um, our Graduate Student Association is to encourage graduate students to expand their social and academic experiences through the following opportunities: to meet fellow graduate students, share and learn from each other's professional experiences while socializing, to encourage acceptance of different cultures, and to recognize the academic achievement of its members, to participate in the programming of events to support personal growth and academic excellence, to create and collaborate to fulfill objectives that represent what great minds can do. to promote the graduate student mission statement with Seton Hall's community members, guest speakers, and alumni. At this moment, I'd like to introduce our mentor, and I like to say that Professor Pritchett is a Woodrow Wilson Fellow who completed over 50 years of teaching and administration at colleges and universities in New Jersey. He's an active member of the Student and Nonviolent Coordinating Committee since 1961. SNCC is and was the student movement within the civil rights movement, and it's a graduate from the HBCU, Delaware State University, and the New School for Social Research. Historically, he participated on the presidential campaigns of Congress, women, Shirley Chisholm and Reverend Jesse Jackson and Barack Obama. At Seton Hall University, he is senior advisor to the Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and the program director for the Martin Luther King Leadership Program. This program offers scholarships, and he is an active in teaching in the University Core Africana Religious and Interdisciplinary Studies. In 2016, he received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Cooperation for National and Community Service and Office of the President of the United States, Barack Obama, President. In 2020, he received the Gray Mine designation from the Seton Hall University campaign, Why Gray Minds Can Do, and he's frequent speaker in the state prison system. He is the author of the African American Community, a bicentennial monograph, William Patterson University, and he was part of the team to assist Dr. Matthew Petersheim to implement the Academic Expo. So I want to welcome Professor Pritchett, who is going to be talking to us at this moment.
Thank you so much, Angie. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. And I hope you're having not only a great voyage at Seton Hall University, but I also hope that during the past 13 months or so that you and your families are doing the best you can do. And I hope that all is going as well as it possibly can go. After Angie gave that introduction, I'm tempted to tell people that when I started teaching, I was only like minus 20 years old. Please laugh. I call this Zoom mental therapy. You know, we get it. But people say, "Boy, you're as old as Moses." I said, "No, actually, the question always is in the Bible: who was here first, Pritchett or Moses?" And I yield to him because his name is in the book. But anyway, I keep myself going with a good sense of humor because day in and day out, sometimes life has not been a crystal garden for people who look like me. And I say all of that because it motivates me to want to give my best. You know, as I was growing up in the world of post-World War II, where economic depression was the major problem, as it is COVID for this current generation. A set of values, people wanted to hold on to what they had. They didn't want too much change. They were somewhat conservative, not in their political outlooks, but in terms of, I guess they learned a lot of lessons about holding on to their money, not buying a lot of things. So by the time we get to the growth of the 1950s, obviously before all of you were born, I'm simply painting a picture that the longer you live, you're going to go through stuff in life. It's not always going to be a rose garden, but I'm glad to be with you today to give some inspiration. I started college in 1961, left from Jersey, as Angie said, attended a historically Black institution. That institution was so supportive of me, I think probably even more supportive than any integrated school would have been in the North. I didn't know that at the time, and that's not how and why I chose my school. But many of us who ended up at that historically Black college came from all over the country. But if you understood what it meant to be an African American during that period of time, many of the students came from very broken homes, perhaps. Their schools may not have been the best equipped, but we had the will, the desire to make it. And then it was the staff at those schools who actually took us under their wings and gave us the persistence in the 1960s. So I say all of that to set my attitude for all of you, because as I speak to you, I don't need to speak from the point of view of my degrees. I will speak from my biography and from life experience. And one of of my interests with the graduate student community at Seton Hall would be as follows, since I've worked here for 42 years. But do you know that in 1856, when it opened, it had 5 men, right? So you should understand the context of higher ed. It was over 200 years earlier that the first college in America was started, which was Harvard. It was only available to white male and who were Protestants. And it's not until literally 200 that we begin to get colleges and universities set up for the Catholic population. But obviously, in today's world, that isn't, there is no religious requirement for any of you in terms of your backgrounds. But I'm going to point out, in a sense, the growth. We started with 5 students. And in today's world, we average in a given year close to, 8,000, 9,000 students. Almost 50% of them are graduate students. So the concern that I would have as one trained in sociology is rather simple. Since the majority of our graduate students are always part-time, I'm just concerned that, number one, we as the institution don't do anything in our institutional culture that makes you all invisible, number one. Number two, I advocate for all voices to be heard. So I'm here today to really listen to what your observations are, not simply about your academic progress, but maybe there are things going on that you simply tolerate, some of you, that need to come to the attention of the larger culture at the university, so that indeed some advocacy could be put in place to make your life even a little better from your perspective. And literally, I'm indicating that policy, when it comes to the graduate student community, is only going to be impacted in a more positive direction when you all have banded together and you're communicating with each other. And as you listen to each other's stories, maybe everything is going quite well. But maybe on the other hand, something may come out of this that will be even beyond our imaginations at the current moment. So I would say that that's what a mentor does. A mentor takes you under the wing and nurtures you, and to see to it that all of your potential is manifested. So potential here is not just measured by you getting your degree. It's measured also by your human qualities that you have. For example, I'll give you a comparison. I was a human being, born a human being, but as I traveled the road of life, nobody really defined my existence by my humanness. They defined it by my color, if you can follow that. So it was left up to myself and my generation, in that sense, to step out of the space created for us by others to assert our voice. And in that context, I learned what it meant to deal with my fears, and knew what it meant to deal with terrorism. I eventually learned how to work with allies, and we did all of that without being guided by anyone. So I would like to position myself to be a strategic resource to you all as you launch this voyage. This is the first time in my 42 years that we have literally had this kind of a platform for you all, the formation of community. So this is like the birthing process. Something new is about to happen. And I'm glad that all of you are here to witness it today. Thank you very much, Angie, for these few words.
Thank you, Professor Prisha, for your message. I appreciate it very, very much. At this point, I would also like to introduce Caroline. She's a mother of 4 beautiful children and 3 fur babies. Caroline received her business undergraduate degree at Seton Hall University with a major in finance and with a minor in accounting and religion. Then she went on to receive a Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry, Master of Arts in Special Education with a concentration in Applied Behavior Analysis, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and is now currently in the EDS program in Higher Education at Seton Hall University. Caroline Godley is going to be one of our panelists today. She is the Director of Budgets and Operations at she volunteers her time teaching second grade and high school level students in faith formation preparation to help them through the sacraments of reconciliation, First Holy Communion, and confirmation, as well as the youth minister for her local church, volunteering her time with different activities for the younger children of the parish with the help from the teens of the parish. Caroline also volunteers for NASAM's place in various activities and donations to aid children and teens with autism spectrum disorder, such as their annual 5K walk for autism, as well as NASAM's Place Summer Camp for children with autism, trunk or treat, movie night, and many, many other activities. So let's welcome Caroline Godley. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. A
That's
little
wonderful.
nervous.
It's all right. As I say, it's going to be an open conversation and we're all going to have the opportunity to share our experiences. So at this moment, I also would like to introduce our second panelist, who is Robert Tanzer. He's also a graduate student at Seton Hall. And Robert is a third year graduate student in the biochemistry PhD program at Seton Hall. He's currently doing research under the mentorship of Dr. Gregory Whiteman in the biophysics, biochemistry, and biomaterials 3B lab. The unifying theme of his various research is FLIPAS inhibitors. Robert is a local New Jersey native, and he completed his bachelor's degree with a double major in chemistry and psychology from Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey in New Brunswick campus. So thank you, Robert, for joining. How are you today?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking.
That's great. So at this point, we're going to start a very quick outline that we did through our presentation. And I'm going to share once again research topics. So we would love to know a little bit more about your research topics. Angelina, could you please continue our questionnaire? Are you
Okay,
muted?
we have, yes, whoever, regardless of Caroline or Robert, but we comprise a list of questions regarding your research topic. And if you can just share what motivated you to pursue that topic and what was the cause that inspired you to come up with that topic.
Thank you, Angelina.
Sure, I'll start off if you want, or Caroline.
That's fine. You can go.
So I actually put the first data point here, outcomes of graduate students who participate in study groups versus those who work alone. This was more along the lines of kind of stuff that I was maybe interested as an undergrad when I was a psychology major and looking at behaviors and outcomes, and specifically as it relates to academics. And in this case, as applies to grad students, I've definitely just noticed, not in any rigorous statistical analysis sense, but just I've had the observations that the students who work in study groups and try to help each other out end up doing far better on exams and their final marks for the class than those who attempt to go in on material alone. And so I just thought that's kind of an interesting sort of social psychological and sociological outcome that I've individually witnessed.
Thank you so much, Robert. Caroline, would you like to also share some of the research that you have conducted or that you are planning to do
So I've did research in women in the church. I found that fascinating, being a woman myself, and the Roman Catholic Church. So our status within the church. Then I did another research on effective and ineffective behavioral interventions for problem behaviors in children and adolescents by age group. So since I like to work with individuals with disabilities and different illnesses, I did a meta-analysis trying to figure out what would be the best approach when trying to, work with children in the different age groups. And now I'm currently working on the effectiveness of Take Me Home. It's a voluntary registry program for vulnerable populations, and currently Montclair Police Department has that installed, and on how it decreases the amount of arrests and injuries in individuals with autism, spectrum disorder, and other disabilities and disorders. And I found that fascinating only because lately you've been hearing in the news about some of these children that have autism spectrum disorder, or a mental illness or some type of disorder. And when the police get to their home, they don't understand the behaviors that they're doing, and they're misinterpreting these behaviors as the child is being non-compliant, or if, sometimes, they might run off if they're come against an aggressive aggressiveness. So they might run off, which is actually called elopement, but the police might feel that they're fleeing from the scene, so they're taking a lot of, and also, these individuals may not look at a person either. So then the police might take that as they're, not looking, so they have to be up to something wrong. So they're taking these behaviors and then they're, arresting these individuals, but they have also have done physical harm and injured these individuals, even shot them. And, so I felt, a volunteer. So the volunteer thing it would be in the police station. It's a database. It's a volunteer database. So the caregiver can give the information to the police. So if the police are cruising the streets, or if they're put on a call, they'll know that there's an individual in the house that maybe has autism spectrum disorder. So that they know what kind of behaviors to expect, and not take them as something else than what they really truly are.
Thank you, Caroline. That's a great explanation, and I can tell why you're so interested in this. Is so humanizing, knowing that there are so many behaviors out there, but and situations that can be treated based on the research and the information and the education, and making sure that those who are in charge of other people or individuals, or like kids, know how to deal with those difficult situations, and rather than being ignorant of helping. Instead they are causing more harm. So thank you for sharing. I'm sure you're gonna explain a little further later in our presentation. I'd like to open up the floor to the audience. If we have anyone who's been experiencing research, and then they feel that that's really making an impact in their life because of past experiences, or because a life that you had as a child, or because of a friend, anything that make you feel motivated to choose a particular research topic. So if anyone is interested, please feel free.
Before we go on to someone else, I just would like to add about Caroline's topic, and
Yes.
thank you for addressing something that is often ignored. Because with the lingering issues with police brutality, at
Yeah.
times law enforcement they don't know how to approach someone with
Mhm.
challenges, and I have witnessed that myself. And those who I know who have challenges, and there needs to be workshops and more education on how to approach someone who is different. And there's nothing wrong with educating yourself on a field or area that you're not knowledgeable in. So I thank you for pursuing that research.
Thank you. Yeah, it's absolutely a necessary thing to be. I'm hoping that I can at least be able to take this topic to all the police stations in New Jersey.
Yes. That would make a great impact. Julius, please go ahead.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. My name
Good
is
afternoon.
Julius Moore. I am in the PhD program here at Seton Hall. Prior to coming into higher education, I served 24 years in the United States Army. Um, in the Army, I didn't know what I was going to do after I retired, and I magically found Seton Hall because I worked here in the ROTC program. And it's always challenging to figure out, what am I going to do as a veteran, to start a second career? Am I going to retire fully and sit up on a beach and drink Mai Tais for the rest of my life? Or am I going to continue working and doing good things for everyone? And I decided to continue working. But as far as my motivation and what I am researching for my dissertation, my biggest focus has been on, how to improve life for veterans after they leave service, whether they're Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, to include Coast Guard. We love them too. But so my dissertation is focusing on student veteran persistence and how to once they do come into higher education, how do they persist all the way through graduation? A lot of my research throughout the master's program and into the PhD program has just been looking at different variants as how do they select their institution of higher learning? How are they, looking at their, educational benefits as far as post 9/11 GI Bill, looking at, what different states offer, yellow ribbon program. And I mean, it's just such a big spider web on what, a student veteran has at their fingertips. But it's sad on the fact that, a lot of student veterans just don't understand that they have these different benefits for them. And there's a lot of digging that they have to do. And I'm hoping that the research that I am doing can be used by the Department of, the Department of the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, or Coast Guard to help and assist these veterans when they are transitioning from military service into civilian life. And they can pretty much do exactly, what I did, with these, with everything that's offering, we start looking at, like just for this semester, just looking at, student loan debt. If a student veteran does it right, they can get all the way up to PhD and come out with nothing owing to anyone. And just imagine that, that service to their country, using their benefits right, using their JST, which stands for like Joint Service Transcript, and using that military experience, get that for college credit, and then having their benefits pay for their college education, and then providing that service to help individuals, get to where they are. Get that education, continue to get that education, provide that service, use that, the leadership and all that training that they've learned in the service, and possibly come into higher education like myself. I mean, that's just one of my big things is how many more veterans can I get into higher education to sit as administrators, to use that skill set, from basic training to, the leadership schools that we have to go to, and just apply all of that into post-secondary education. So a lot of pretty much all of my research has been going into that. And then the other thing is that one thing that I was told when entering grad school, was that when, I do a particular subject in the class, like focus on, the end game. If I'm planning on doing a dissertation that focuses on student veterans, then if I'm doing a class that's focusing on financial, tailor it into student veterans. If I'm doing a class that's working on or the history of higher education, how do I tie that into student veterans? And pretty much each and every class that I've done here at Seton Hall has been tailored some way, somehow to student veterans. So I'm focusing on all the scholarly articles and everything. So when it comes to dissertation time, that I'm not rereading and trying to relearn a new subject. And that's helped me out tremendously. And I do thank a lot of my colleagues within the program that kind of steered me in that direction. So if you're all listening, and if you are just starting out in graduate school, then find one subject that you love and just continue to stay on that area. And that's why I've been doing that same thing, because I start dissertation 1 next semester, and I feel very confident about that because I've been doing the same thing for past 3.5 years, looking at the same pieces of work, and that same motivation is just going to drive me to the finish line. I got a little bit of gray hair, but I don't think that it's all going to go away by the time I get to where I need to be. But, my motivation has just been my passion of, being a service member, serving this country. And then I want to see how I can take that and push it even further. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
That is so wonderful. And I want to appreciate everyone's, oh my goodness, experiences and sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. And I have conducted some research myself. Many years ago, in 2015, I was very interested in learning how music can affect and influence a society and the identity of people. And I did analysis of how music become part of our everyday lives, and how that contributes to a particular tradition that a particular culture has. So since I am a Latina, I very recently started looking into the Latinx student community who are attending institutions that are Hispanic serving institutions in New Jersey. And I started analyzing the data as an institutional research, looking into how gender, how Latinas and Latinos differ, or how similar students can experience their years at school. And I look at numbers in terms of student enrollment, instead of also in terms of 6-year graduation rates, and also outcomes, how many of those students who actually graduated were female Latinas students, and how many of those were male Latinos. And then my study was looking at a span of 10 years. And that was a surprise for me, because during all the analysis that I conducted, the outcomes were that many, let's say around 5,000 student females, Latinas students who enter enrollment, most of them graduated, but less than 50% of the male Latinos did not get to graduate, not even after 6 years. And so that is a concern, and something that we learn from research, so that higher education leaders can make a difference, can work towards targeting new programming, new opportunities, resources, academic advising, mentoring to support that particular student community. So for me, as Julius and Caroline and Robert, everyone has mentioned, being connected to your research is pretty important, like making sure that the topic or the interest that you have is not because of the work that you must do for your classes or to get your degree, or like Professor Forrest mentioned, is beyond the degree, beyond the getting that certificate, is how important that interest is going to take you to go beyond school to make sure you are helping other people, you are helping your community, you're helping other students, a new generation of students. So I consider that is very meaningful through the research that we can conduct. Is there anybody else who is interested in sharing their research? Okay, so we'll continue with our presentation. Why is research important? Just like I mentioned, if we can make sure that the information that we are collecting, the data, that is going to be useful for a particular purpose. So could you please share in your field what those applications could be?
Caroline, do you want to go first this time?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Carol.
Yes, it took me a while just to get the mic to go on. But I find it very interesting to be researching all these different topics because you don't hear a lot in the media. There's like specific things that you might hear in the media, and there's a lot of things you don't hear about. And, you know, it's just researching. So I do have the interest with individuals with autism spectrum disorder. And so just researching, and you find so many different things that are out there. And then it's like, well, if we have that happening right now, what could we do to at least help, even if it's our local community, to ease that problem? So I just find I find it really important, you know, with the research, and I feel that I can help others and maybe, you know, our local community as well.
Thank you, Caroline. What about you, Robert?
Yes, thank you. That was very nice. And for me, I was raised in a household of two medical doctors, or my parents, and my cousins are well, their brothers and sisters and their children have all become doctors. So I'm from a family of scientists, and I felt it was important for me to do something with my life that was in the realm of science and giving back. I know both my parents wanted me to become a medical doctor, to which I quickly realized that wasn't for me early on, and but I still wanted to contribute, like you said, and give back in some way. And for me, that was through biochemistry research, where we're going through and creating new innovative treatments and drugs for treating microbial infections in individuals that are particularly deadly. So we're all in the coronavirus right now. So coronavirus is the virus, not a bacteria, but there have been other epidemics and issues with microbial diseases. So that's where my research primarily comes in, and trying to find new effective treatments for drug-resistant microbes. And the things I typed here were that children will naively ask a question because they aren't subject matter experts. So they'll ask, well, why does this happen? Or how does this happen? And it's the incessant how and why questions of a child that usually parents are just, they don't have the patience to answer it. And you need to go through and be able to systematically answer these questions. So for me, I feel like I never grew up as a kid. I still ask these childlike questions, even if it seems something that's obvious and simple. I'll still ask the question to check my own understanding to see if it makes sense. And 21st century challenges require first principles thinking and society-wide dedication to overcome such obstacles. So big one of these are like climate change or environmental pollution. So a big one that I'm on fairly recently is the ocean dumping that occurred over the past 100 years of hazardous chemical waste. And it infuriates me that our federal government, the EPA, allowed chemical companies to dump tens or hundreds of thousands of barrels of toxic chemical waste off the coast of California and in the Gulf of Mexico. This is unacceptable. And as a scientist and environmentalist, I want to see these problems get remediated at a society-wide level, at a government level, at every step of the game, where we're trying to remediate these problems and prevent them from ever occurring in the future through correct waste disposal. And it's amazing. You can see all these instruments behind me. I'm in my chemistry lab right now. Most of the chemical waste can actually be disposed of through incineration. It's burnt and then it's just turned into CO2. It's not the greatest solution, but CO2 is a hell of a lot better pollutant than a lot of these other crazy pollutants that are actually carcinogenic and will actually kill a lot more things than CO2 will. So that's where I'm coming from for my PhD in biochemistry and my motivations for where I'm coming from in my time here at Seton Hall. Thank you very
Well
much.
say, Robert, that's the way to go. We must take care of our planet, and we just can. I mean, we must insist. We must insist that this is something that needs to be taken care of. There must be. It must be a priority. I know that financial needs and all other very difficult things that happen in our planet are a priority, but I mean, there is no way to continue living like this without making sure that we care about our environment. So we definitely need scientists like you, Robert, who are making this possible. And I just want to say thank you for sharing so much. I know that through your PhD, you're gonna make a huge impact in the world. And this is why we have an open space here so that we can learn from each other. I also would like to open up the opportunity. Is there anybody else who's here who would like to, who wants to say anything about your research or the impact? Why is it important for you? If not, we'll continue. So Angelina, could you please take this one?
Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the barriers. Any barriers or anything frustrating that you have come across in your research? If you'd like to share that, or if there's no barriers, that's great. Caroline or Robert.
Right now, I can't say I came across any barriers. I'm sure once I want to start implementing different things and I'm going further into the community, I'm sure I will hit barriers. I mean, not everybody sees things the same way as we do when we're researching, and they don't see things could be really, a problem. But yeah, that'll be the barriers that we have, is trying to get through to other people who don't feel that our research is really, a necessary topic.
Right, and in my opinion, I think the barriers are intrinsically inherent to the specific field. So for me, for a biochemist, my barrier is what's the next research topic? What are the molecules that we're going to synthesize? How are we going to synthesize them? Where are we going to get all the starting materials? How are we going to purify it? Analyze this stuff and get the results. And it's different as a social psychologist or a social scientist. You're like you said, you're more along the lines of how do I develop interest for this topic, funding for this topic, or just getting participants to participate in something like a psychological research, social psychology or social science experiment.
Thank you, Robert. I would like to add that also in the field of education, some of the frustration can happen when we know that access is not something that all students have, and that unfortunately, based on the socioeconomic status of many of our children, that's the type of education that they receive. And so research can continue enhancing in improving the opportunity for more access to education to all students, regardless of ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and so forth. Are there any personal stories that Caroline and Robert or Professor Forrest or Angelina or Julius, and I'm gonna go here through my list because I wanna make sure that you hear your name, Chelsea or Lula or Swati, anyone interested who wants to just share with us any particular personal story.
I will. So I very much into individuals with autism spectrum disorder, and that's because my youngest son, um, when he was 6 months old, started showing, different behaviors that I had not known before. And I'm the oldest of 6 children, and many nieces and nephews, and no one had acted this way. And he started with, at 6 months, start screaming in the middle of the night for about 2.5 hours straight. And if you tried, normally with a mother, if you try, you would soothe your child. They'll know your voice and they'll soothe. But he never did. He would just be blacked out and just keep screaming. And then he wouldn't go to school. He wouldn't stay there. He was doing other things like banging his head and ripping his ears till they bleed, and you know, all kinds of different behaviors that I've never seen before. And we started with taking him. I started with first researching stuff, and that's how I got into researching on my own. I wasn't in school because I was taking care of, he was the youngest, 4 children. 3 of them were like really a year apart, 10 months between one and the other instead of, 2. So, so I was home and I would start researching because I'm like, what is going on? I don't know. Like, I've never seen this before. And then actually on the news, I saw something and I was like, oh, so then I really got to be able to start researching other things. And then I tried reaching out to doctors, but it was really hard because a lot of the doctors, one was like, oh, I can't work with you right now. When he gets older, then I can work with you. And then another doctor was just, well, and at the time he was like a year and a half when I'm talking to these doctors. One was a psychiatrist that said, okay, well, why don't you and your husband come in? And like for 6 months, I was seeing a psychiatrist, and I'm like, okay, this isn't helping my son. Like, you're not helping us. You're not giving me any guidance on what to do here. And then, we stopped doing that. And then I got in touch with actually the insurance company, and I asked them for some guidance, and they gave me some doctors to talk to. And the one doctor I talked to was, so like one thing I did find out is he has severe separation anxiety. So the one doctor's like, well, we can put him in a hospital so we can like observe his behaviors. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The child would be freaking out. He, has his severe separation anxiety on top of like everything else. And then it wasn't until I actually found a doctor who would actually deals with pediatrics and geriatrics. And he was the only doctor I can say that actually helped, because at least he was giving diagnosis, because I was going to so many different doctors. I have so many different diagnoses. One had said, oh, he has a sleep disorder. And then, and then someone was like, well, it's behavior issues. Finally, when I went to a doctor, we did find out I was, like another thing he would do was, he would eat, and I would notice, like, if he was in a situation that he was uncomfortable in, he would eat lined white paper, toilet paper, napkins, paper towels, right? And I'm like, what's going on? So then they gave me a name. So then I had a name for that. And, Yeah, and then it was like, oh, well, just keep working with him. So, I mean, and I did. I worked with him, and then I ended up, once they got older and his behaviors started to subside and he was doing so much better and he was going to school now. I actually went back to school and I went and that's when I started applied behavior analysis. And then I was just like curious, like what I did for my son was like that the right thing to do? And only to find out, yes, everything I did for him was right. And they gave, and it had names attached to it. So I felt like, oh, this is great. And then I did my internship with adults that live in residential homes. And then I found that rewarding because here I was able to apply, what I learned and what I've done in experience with adults. And I didn't think I would ever be able to help adults at all. And it is amazing because not all adults want to change, but yeah, you might find 50% that do. And it's amazing because, their lives can be so much more enriching, and that's what I found, that I really liked. But yeah, that's my story. So it, and yeah, my son does offer challenges. I mean, he did go to school, and if he didn't like a teacher, he did give them a hard time. And after a while, the schools ended up not understanding him, and then we know like okay, and move him into a different class with a teacher who can handle somebody with different needs, and then he would do better in that class. So yeah, and it's hard because not all teachers are educated for handling somebody with special needs, and everybody is different. I mean, God made us all have special talents and gifts. So, yes, I understand a teacher's challenge to have 27 students and they all have different wonderful and beautiful gifts and talents for them to even understand it and be able to help each child. But yeah, I mean, so mine is a very personal story. So
Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing because that's definitely very personal, and you are giving us a blessing with knowing your story so that we can learn and we can appreciate and we can also research about it and teach more about it. Um, I think that it takes courage and it takes love, a deep love for everything we do and for our children, our family, and for everything we have to also be able to share with each other. And it's not easy. And I just want to say so much that I mean, thank you so much because it is not easy, and you are opening that opportunity for us to learn, to know more about it. So thank you, Caroline. We appreciate it. Robert, do you want to maybe share a personal story?
Yes, I have one particular one in mind actually, and at the heart of it, there's some similarities to Caroline's story, but I'm a young man. I'm 28. I'm single. I don't have children, so I don't have that element of the story. But when I was a child, um, again, I don't remember every specifics of the story, but I remember the general idea of it, which is kind of important. When I was a youngster, my grandmother came to visit, and she was taking care of us while my parents were away at some medical conference, getting their continuing medical credits as is needed for modern board certification for doctors. And I don't even remember what I was thinking about, or I was just in general. I was always wondering, why does this happen, or how does this happen, how does this work, or why does this work, in any situation or any physical thing. And my grandmother yelled at me. She says, "Robert, you don't wonder." And that this took me aback as a child because now as an adult I could say, how can an adult and like a 60 or 70-year-old woman tell an aspiring 8-year-old scientist not to wonder, not to think about the universe? And this is something that stuck with me because now I want to go back to my grandmother's grave and say, you know what, Grandma, do you know what I do for a living? I wonder. and you told me not to do this. So, you know, I think going against what older generations sometimes tell you is the truth or the way that things work. Sometimes you have to cut against the grain and go against what others think you should do or what others say you should be doing, and do what you truly think is right in your heart. And that's what I did with me. I thought my grandmother, I love her to death, but she was wrong in that instance. I didn't have the language or vocabulary skills to express this as a child, but she was wrong. Okay, children are supposed to wonder. They're supposed to think about how the universe works, why it works, and how can they make it better. Because children are the most creative thinkers out of them all. And that's my personal story I wanted to share with you guys.
You just said it. Yes, children are blessings, are created to wonder, to improve, to enhance, to go beyond our expectations and help our planet. So we
Yes.
must take care of our planet today for our kids. So with
Yeah.
that, I like
Just
to
as
open
just
up
as
the floor. Yes, go ahead,
before
Angeli.
we move on but for Robert and regarding children, thank you for expressing that, because I decided to pursue a Master of Public Administration, particularly to create my own nonprofit, to expose children to opportunities, because yes, children, they give them opportunity to wonder, but also give them those resources to nurture whatever they're wondering about. So thank you for sharing that today, Robert.
Yes, thanks.
That's right, Angelina. I like to open up again the opportunity for everyone to give us your ideas, your answers, stories, anything you want to share. How can we build relationships, community, academic, and social development through research? As this is a space that we have during the Peter Scheim Academic Exposition, and this is just the beginning, an opportunity for us to do fellowship, do sharing each other's stories so that we learn, so that we know that each one of us is unique and that we must appreciate that. Um, is there anyone else who wants to share anything related to research or your work during graduate school? Why did you attend graduate school in the first place? What are you expecting to do after you graduate?
I personally am either going to go and do a postdoctoral fellowship continuing in chemistry research, or I'm going to try to find a job working for a biopharmaceutical here in New Jersey.
Thank you, Robert. What about you, Caroline?
So I mean, my research, a lot of it is just to help all the individuals with special needs. And I just want to be able to help make others aware, because that was one thing with my son. My family never knew anything about it. So they, either I got, well, you just don't discipline him enough. And it was like, you know what? You could have disciplined him, but he didn't think like everyone else. So, I had to find different ways, and it wasn't discipline. I had to, talk to him, explain things to him, and give him like one command at a time, and have him complete that first before, giving him another, command. And he's different, and he's still different today, but yeah, and once he got to be 10, 12 years old, he even started with being angry at God, that God made him so different. And I had to go through that period with him as well, to now, he knows he's different, but he also, I try to always, like all my children, I try to encourage them in whatever you know, uh, their highest quality is in life. So he is very, I mean, socializing, he isn't the greatest, but he likes to work with his hands, and he taught himself how to fix bikes, and everybody in the neighborhood would come to him for him to fix their bikes. And now he's, you know, progressed and he's fixing cars. So he likes, he likes to, work with his hands. So that's something that, I just it kept encouraging him, just like I encourage all my children, and then even like my husband was like, oh, I'm not going to have a mechanic in my house. I'm like, what are you talking about? The mechanic down the street has a boat and his fancy house. I struggled all my life. I was uh, born poor and I struggled and I still struggle. And I'm like, I mean, here, I mean, at least he's working. I mean, there's others that aren't working. And, if he lives with me forever, he lives with me forever. It doesn't matter, you know. It doesn't matter. But, with research, I'm hoping that I can help others to see what is really going on, how to treat people who are different. And like I've seen, in the news, there are some, with the police as well. And hopefully that we can, help the police understand, the behaviors a lot more, help educate them. So, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. And hopefully, hopefully we can help uh, these individuals
That's
with,
right.
to go on to lead enriching lives, because that's what we want everybody to live. Everybody's a human being regardless of anything in life, and we all should be able to go on and live an enriching life.
That is right. And thank you for that, Caroline, because those are like perfect closing remarks. We need to go on appreciating our own life and helping each other. Swati, please go ahead.
Yeah, Carolyn, thank you so much for sharing your story. And, there is a whole taboo in the society that a normal child is someone who goes to school, who finishes his schooling, then goes to college, and then, earns a degree and then gets a job. That's not it. Your child has this special talent where he can fix bikes. I don't have that.
Right, I
Okay.
don't either.
Yeah, I don't have that. So maybe he doesn't talk like me, but he does something that I can't do. That's education by itself. We all think that going to school, K-12 or higher education is getting education, but that's not true. Maybe if he focuses his entire life in doing those mechanical things, fixing bikes or further up, and then maybe he could just be the next researcher or inventor. That's how cars were discovered. That's how airplanes were discovered. Uh, had mothers and fathers said no to the Wright brothers, we wouldn't be flying across the
Right.
globe right now. So the whole notion of education is different now. We are in a generation where um, acquiring skills and getting knowledge and doing research on that topic is education. That's my perspective. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Swati. I appreciate it. That's definitely right. I want to say thank you, everyone, one more time. And I think we all did a great job. This is our very first virtual Graduate Student Association event, and the first time during our Peter Scheim Academic Exposition 2021. Um, Professor Forrest, would you like to give us some closing remarks?
Well, today was a day that should be marked in history. So as the beginning point, and I just wish you all a strong foundation and build upon this. You are, among other things, you are a learning community. You can learn from each other, and you can lean on each other. And I just want to also salute. I put a little something in the chat as Caroline started to share that story. But so often in life, I would say a lot of what we can accomplish, a lot of our direction, and a lot of our interest is directed by our personal biography. So I want to thank you for transparency in that context. It reminds me of a story I heard, and it almost comes across like a joke, but I use it occasionally, where a young man, his grandmother told him she had sugar in her foot. And he looked at her foot and didn't see any sugar on it. And he said, "Where's the sugar?" but she explained to him that it was really a disease in the blood. And later he repeated that story because he's getting ready for college. He says, I want to be a doctor one day and I want to help get rid of the sugar in the body, as it works out. But, a person like that, he may have been great in school, but his motivation went beyond teachers and just curriculum and books. It was probably at that point in his spirit and a passion of his heart. So I'm going to thank you all. We watch, as I said, the birthing of this Graduate Student Association, and I look forward to the flower as it begins to unfold one day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Forrest. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact gsa@shu.edu. And I look forward to continuing growing our Graduate Student Association at Seton Hall University. Everybody be blessed and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.